Every October, my friends and I hit up this local haunted attraction on the edge of town. It sat right by the woods, the perfect creepy spot. Every year, they opened 3 main attractions: the haunted house, a corn maze, and a haunted trail through the forest. There were 4 of us that night: Rod, James, and Bud. Not his real name, just what we called him. We started with the haunted house. It was decent, a few solid scares that got our hearts going. Then we moved on to the corn maze. At first, it was just a bunch of twists and turns through tall corn. But after a while, the laughter stopped, and that's when things started to get really scary. The air inside the corn maze felt colder, heavier, like the wind couldn't find its way out. We were laughing, still hyped from the haunted house, when out of nowhere, a guy dressed like a twisted scarecrow burst out of the corn. He screamed right in our faces, and we screamed too, half from fear and half from surprise. Then he started chasing us. Without thinking, we all bolted. I was in the back, and the scarecrow was right behind me. Even though I knew he was just an actor, my body didn't care. That deep animal fear kicked in, the kind that tells you to run before you even think. I crashed through the corn, heart pounding, trying to keep up with my friends. But in the chaos, we all split up. I couldn't see anyone anymore, just the narrow trails and the sound of dry stalks brushing against my jacket. My breath was fogging in the cold air, and when I finally stopped, the scarecrow was gone. For a second, I laughed, relieved, thinking it was over. But that's where the nightmare really began. I yelled for my friends, shouting their names into the maze, but no one answered. No laughter, no footsteps, nothing. It felt like everyone had vanished. The lights above flickered, and the music from the speakers sounded far away, like it was coming from another world. I walked and walked, taking wrong turns, calling out, hoping someone would shout back. No one did. It felt like I had been stuck there for 20 minutes, when I heard rustling in the corn ahead. I slowed down, tiptoeing toward it, trying not to make a sound. That's when a hand shot out from the corn and grabbed my wrist. The grip was so hard I actually cried out. "Stop, you're hurting me!" I shouted. Whoever it was didn't say a word, just kept pulling me into the corn. I saw only his sleeve, a heavy black coat, black gloves. I yanked myself free and stumbled backward, heart racing. Then he stepped out of the corn. He wasn't wearing a scarecrow mask or anything from the attraction, just a black winter coat, jeans, and a blank black mask that covered his face completely. I yelled at him, furious. "Go to hell, man, you actually hurt me!" But he didn't stop. He started running toward me. Instinct took over. I turned and ran, shoving through the corn, branches scratching my arms. "I'm reporting you!" I screamed behind me, hoping it would scare him off. After a few minutes of sprinting in random directions, I lost him. I broke through the edge of the maze and found one of the staff near the entrance. I told him what happened, explaining how the guy had grabbed me and squeezed my wrists like he was trying to drag me away. The employee frowned, confused. He said he didn't know anyone in that kind of outfit, but that he'd look into it. I thanked him, still shaking, and checked my phone. 1 missed call from James. When I called him back, he said they'd tried finding me, then gave up and went to the haunted trail in the woods. I told him I'd meet them there. I followed the sound of Halloween music echoing through hidden speakers until I reached the start of the trail. The trees were tall and close together, and the deeper I went, the quieter it got. I started to feel like I was completely alone, surrounded only by the woods and whatever was out there. I kept walking, trying to catch up to my friends, when I froze. Standing in the path ahead of me was the same man in the black mask. He didn't move, didn't speak. The second I realized it was him, he charged at me, full speed. I turned and ran again, off the path this time, deeper into the woods. "I'm calling the cops," I yelled, even though I wasn't. I just needed him to stop. After a few minutes, the sound of his footsteps faded. I stopped by a tree, gasping for air, trying to think. Had he really followed me all the way from the corn maze? My phone buzzed suddenly, loud in the silence. I silenced it right away, but then I heard new footsteps. Slow, steady, getting closer. I crouched behind the tree, peeking around the side. Nothing. I started running back toward the main trail, but as I turned, I saw him again, just a few feet away. I snapped. "I'm suing this place because of you," I shouted. But he didn't stop. He slammed into me, knocking me to the ground. I hit the dirt, stunned, but somehow got back up and ran as fast as I could. He chased me, but when I reached the entrance again, he stopped, turned around, and vanished into the dark. I rushed straight to the front office, shaking, and demanded to see a manager. An older man came out and I told him everything. The grabbing, the chasing, the attack. He looked confused and said none of their actors wore anything like that. Then his face changed. He called the police right away. When the officers showed up, my friends finally found me. I explained everything, but I didn't have any bruises or marks to prove it. They still took my statement and shut the place down for the night. We all went home afterward, silent, each of us trying to make sense of what happened. But deep down, I knew one thing for sure. Whoever that man was, he wasn't part of the show. I haven't been to any haunted attractions ever since that night. Every October, when the decorations go up and people start talking about haunted houses or corn mazes, I still feel a chill crawl up my spine. I tell myself it was probably just some crazy guy who slipped in, someone looking to scare people for real, but deep down a part of me isn't so sure. Because I can still remember the sound of his footsteps behind me, the way he stopped right at the edge of the path, like he knew exactly where the lights ended. What haunts me most isn't what he did, it's wondering how long he had been watching us before he made his move. Every Halloween since then, I think about that night and the people who go to those attractions, laughing, screaming, thinking it's all part of the fun. Maybe it is, or maybe, sometimes, something else slips in. Something that isn't part of the show. The year I turned 13, my friend invited me and 2 others to spend Halloween night at his house. He lived just outside of town, in a big, quiet neighborhood, perfect for trick-or-treating. After hours of running door to door, we were almost done when we stopped at one last house. A tall, skinny woman with shoulder-length hair opened the door. The smell of cigarettes hit us right away, and the place behind her looked filthy. She said she'd run out of candy but could try to find something. A few minutes later, she came back with an old brown paper bag full of dusty, old-looking sweets. We politely said no and told her we were getting picked up. That's when she suddenly grabbed my friend's arm and said, "No, please!" He pulled away and she quickly slammed the door. We just stood there staring, not saying a word. Something about her felt really wrong. We hit a few more houses after that strange one before we heard shouting near the parking lot of the housing complex. A woman was screaming, her voice shaking with panic. "They took my child! They took her!" When we got closer, my heart dropped. It was her. The same woman from the house with the smell of smoke. She was pounding her fist against a car window, throwing herself at the door, crying out. And the car she was hitting, it was my friend's parents' car. We froze, unsure what to do. A few neighbors came running out, pulling her back, telling her to stop. They recognized her right away. One of them turned to us and said softly, "I'm so sorry, kids. She's not well. It's a big misunderstanding." We didn't ask questions. We just got in the car as fast as we could. My friend's mom started the engine, and we drove off, trying to put distance between us and that woman. But before we even got to the end of the street, she appeared again. Out of nowhere, she jumped right in front of the car, screaming that one of us was her child. The neighbors rushed after her, pulling her away once more as we sped off into the night. We thought that was the end of it, but it wasn't. Later that night, we stayed up late like kids always do, watching scary movies and joking about what happened. Then the hallway light turned on by itself. We saw the glow under the bedroom door. We figured it was my friend's parents coming to tell us to go to bed, but no one came in. The house stayed silent. I got up to check, cracked the door open. Nothing. The hall was empty. My friends joined me, confused, when suddenly one of them whispered, trembling, "It's her!" Through the big window facing the backyard, we saw that same woman standing outside, staring right at us. The second she realized we saw her, she bolted into the dark. We ran back into the bedroom, locked the door, and sat there shaking. None of us knew what she wanted, or how she found us. We stayed awake for almost an hour, too scared to move, but eventually, exhaustion took over and we fell asleep. The next morning, my friend's mom looked pale and tired. She told us she hadn't slept much because she thought she saw that same woman standing over her bed in the middle of the night. The 3 of us just sat there in silence. We never told her that we saw the woman too. And to this day, I still wonder if what we saw that night was real or something else entirely, which led us to wonder, what if she really was inside the house that night? The thought still gives me chills. We tried to convince ourselves it was impossible, that it was just our imagination after a long, creepy day. But the truth is, none of us really knew. The lights, the noise, the feeling that someone was watching us, it all felt too real to ignore. And what scared me most wasn't seeing her outside the window, but realizing she might have already been inside before we even locked the door. Even now, years later, every time Halloween comes around, I still think about that night, about how fear can blur the line between what's real and what's not. Remember, she was just a lost, broken woman who needed help. Or maybe she was something far darker, something that found its way into our world for just one night. Last year, Halloween fell on a Wednesday, and I was home alone. My dad was working nights, my mom was staying with her sister because they weren't getting along, and my sister was away at college. So it was just me handing out candy. My dad had bought a few bags of Kit Kats and told me he wanted them gone by the end of the night. He's weirdly serious about Halloween. I got home from classes around 6, it was already dark, and the neighborhood was full of kids. The moment I dropped my bag on the couch, the doorbell rang, and it kept ringing for hours. By 9, things had finally quieted down. I was doing homework when the bell rang again. It had been almost half an hour since the last one, so I grabbed the bowl, expecting a few late trick-or-treaters, but when I opened the door, it wasn't kids, it was a man, maybe mid-30s, standing alone. He waved at me with a blank expression and didn't say a word. I just stared. Uneasy, then he reached for the handle of the storm door. The second it moved, I slammed the main door shut and locked it. Texted my family group chat right away, saying some old guy had just tried to open the door. My dad joked back, if he does it again, go out there and teach him a lesson. Funny, right? But I wasn't laughing. I decided that was it for the night. No more opening the door. I went upstairs to finish my homework, trying to shake off the weird feeling. A few minutes later, I heard yelling outside. At first I ignored it, but it kept getting louder until I couldn't take it anymore. I slid my window open and looked down. That same man was standing in my driveway, staring up at my window, shouting. He kept saying he needed help finding his son, but there was something off about the way he said it, like he was acting. I didn't believe a word of it. I texted my family again and my dad just told me to ignore him, said he'd go away, and turned off my room light so he'd think I wasn't there, and went down to the basement, the one place in the house with no windows. It felt safer down there. I kept working for a while, and things went quiet, until suddenly, click, the power went out. My stomach dropped. My first thought was that the man had messed with the electric box outside. I stayed on my phone, texting my family, when I heard it. The floorboards creaking above me. Slow, heavy steps. Someone was in the house. My mom, dad, and sister all texted me at once. Call the cops. Don't move. I stayed hidden in the dark basement, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The police were on their way. All I had to do was wait. Then I heard the basement door creak open. Faint light from upstairs spilled down the steps, just enough for me to see his legs. He walked halfway down and stopped. I froze. He just stood there, completely still, for what felt like forever. 2 whole minutes, maybe more. I could hear him whispering to himself, but the words didn't make sense. Then, in this low, rasping voice, he said, "I can see you the whole time." I realized his legs were turned toward me. Was he actually staring straight at me in the dark? Neither of us moved. It was the longest, most terrifying silence of my life. Then, there was a loud banging at the front door. Police knocking. The man turned, climbed the stairs, shut the basement door, and I heard the floorboards creak again as he walked away. I waited 20 seconds before sprinting upstairs. The cops were already there, searching, but he was gone. We found out later he'd gotten in through the back door. I'd stupidly left it unlocked. And yes, he'd really tampered with the electric box outside, just like I thought. I don't know if he showed up on Halloween by chance or if he planned it, but something about that man wasn't right. There was this emptiness in his eyes, like he wasn't really there, like he didn't belong out in the world anymore. Every year since then, when the air turns cold and kids start knocking on doors for candy, I still think about him, about how he stood there in the dark, silent, waiting. Maybe it was just some guy who'd lost his mind, or maybe, just maybe, he wasn't really alive to begin with. Halloween is supposed to be fun. Costumes, laughter, candy, but sometimes the scariest part of the night isn't the monsters and masks, it's the people who don't need one. It was Halloween night maybe 4 years ago, on a Saturday. My friend Tanner and I wanted to do something actually scary that year. So we decided to visit the old abandoned house up the road from campus, Peeb, called it the Blair Witch House because it sat alone at the top of a hill, surrounded by woods, and had been empty for years. Around 10 o'clock, Tanner drove us up there and parked in the dirt. The place looked even creepier in person. Completely dark, no lights, just shadows and silence. We brought flashlights, a couple of knives, and Tanner, for some reason, brought a crowbar. He didn't need it, though. The front door was already cracked open, swaying a little in the wind. We stepped inside, our flashlights cutting through layers of dust. The house looked stripped bare. No furniture, no life, just junk scattered across the floor. It didn't feel haunted, not yet, just empty. But standing there, in the dark, I couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was still in there with us. Then we heard it, a heavy thump from upstairs. Tanner and I froze, staring at each other. Without saying a word, we both knew we had to check it out. He led the way up the stairs, which creaked under every step, old wood groaning beneath our weight. At the top was a narrow hallway with 3 doors. The first room was tiny, just an old bed frame collapsed in the corner. The second door opened into an empty bathroom, its walls peeling and mirror cracked. Then there was the last door, the one on the right. We stepped inside what looked like the master bedroom. The air was colder there, still, like the house was holding its breath. A single bed frame sat in the center of the room, and scraps of torn carpet clung to the wooden floor. We scanned the room, whispering, trying to figure out what made that sound. And then, slam! The door behind us slammed shut so hard it shook the walls. Before either of us could react, a blinding white flash filled the room. Then another. It looked like camera flashes. Tanner screamed, yanked the door open, and bolted. I didn't think, I just followed. We tore down the stairs and sprinted out the front door, never looking back. Tanner jumped into the car, started it, and we sped back to campus without saying a single word. A week later, Tanner texted me a picture. He was holding a photograph, an old, faded one. It showed the two of us standing inside that same bedroom, flashlights in hand. He said he found it tucked under his windshield wiper in the dorm parking lot. I told him to throw it away and never go near that house again, and to this day, neither of us has ever gone back. We only told a few close friends about what happened that night, and even they didn't believe us at first, but after seeing the photo, their faces went pale. None of us ever went near that house again. Sometimes, though, I still think about it. Who took that picture, and how did they know exactly when we were there? Maybe someone was already watching us from the moment we stepped inside. Or maybe something else was. That old house still stands on that hill today, empty and silent, but every Halloween the lights in the upstairs window flicker for just a few seconds before fading to black. I don't know if it's a coincidence or a warning, but I'm never finding out. So tell me, what do you think really happened that night? Was it someone playing a twisted prank, or something much darker? Let me know your theory in the comments, and if you want more true stories that'll keep you awake tonight, don't go anywhere, watch the next video on the channel. It's even more chilling than this one.